Well, the man at the centre of it all, Governor Richardson, joins us now live from Santa Fe in New Mexico. We should also add he's a former US ambassador to the United Nations. Thank you so much for joining us, Governor. Just tell us in your own words, why'd you quit?
I quit because they didn't want to listen to bad advice. Aung San Suu Kyi exploded at me when I said to her, there have to be significant reforms in dealing with the refugees. You have to release the 2 Reuters journalists that are incarcerated. You have to have independent commissions into the mass graves. And she was very mad at me. It was obvious the commission just wanted to be whitewashing, just wanted to validate her opinions. And what really triggered my final resignation was the panel met with Aung San Suu Kyi without me because they didn't want to hear frank advice. And I've known Aung San Suu Kyi for 30 years. I've supported her. She picked me for this panel, but she doesn't want to listen to frank advice.
Do you stand by your words that it's a whitewash, even after all of this fallout? And why do you think that? I mean, you mentioned that you think that perhaps she's not wanting to listen to your advice, but is the whole thing a whitewash?
Well, I believe it is a whitewash because the chairman of the commission said we're only going to meet twice, already once, and then at the end of the year. What are we supposed to do in between? There's nothing. I don't think that the refugees are ready to come back from Bangladesh to Myanmar. There's been mistreatment of the Muslim minority. There's been mistreatment, human rights atrocities. I think that the Bangladeshi government, the Implementation Commission, may be serious about dealing with a problem, but they're emphasizing speed as opposed to serious standards. They want to keep the United Nations experts out. They shun the international community's point of view. They denounce human rights groups. Oh, they're all against us. I think the West and Aung San Suu Kyi have to come together here, or there will be a very bad solution where almost 1 million people are displaced, where there's all kinds of atrocities, mass graves.
You said earlier that she exploded. This is a woman who, in public, in the face of increasing pressure, always seems very calm, very composed. What do you mean by she exploded?
Well, she was very mad at me when I raised the issue. She almost yelled at me. I respect her. I still like her. I know she doesn't like me anymore. I've stood behind her for 30 years. She picked me for this panel. I've invested in Bangladesh over the years to help them move into democracy. But I think she doesn't want to take on the military. She's afraid of them. They're the perpetrators of a lot of this violence. And she doesn't want to take frank advice. She's in a cocoon, an us against them attitude. We call it a bubble. Powerful people don't want to hear bad advice. I think that's a problem, and I hope she comes out of it. And the West has to be part of the solution. The UN, the human rights groups, other nations, Turkey, the United States, the European Union, they're all concerned about the human rights violations and the status of the refugees. But only Aung San Suu Kyi, perhaps leaning on the military, can try to fix some of these terrible problems that exist there.
What do you feel is the way forward for the Rohingya? I mean, this panel was set up to try and improve their lives, to try and talk about getting them back to their homes or rebuilding their homes. What's the way forward here? And do you think that Suu Kyi needs to leave office in order for a better future to be worked out?
Well, right now, if I were a Rohingya refugee moving to Myanmar, I would not go. I think Bangladesh was right to stop the repatriation because Myanmar is not ready. They need safety standards, assurances that they will not be violated, citizenship, a path to citizenship. They need the United Nations, the experts, the human rights groups that monitor this transfer back into Myanmar of these people, assuring them of safety. They need UNRWA, the refugee agency. They need an investigation into the mass graves. A lot of these refugees don't want to go back because of the safety concerns, because they hear about mass graves. They don't hear of a future for their families and children. I think there has to be an understanding, a détente between the West, the UN agencies, the countries, and Aung San Suu Kyi. And right now, Aung San Suu Kyi and the military in the Myanmar don't want to listen. They think their position is correct. And this advisory group, I think, was just going to ratify, validate that bad policy that they've been making. My hope is that my resignation is a small step forward, a wake-up call to Aung San Suu Kyi that even her friends, her good friends like me, are concerned about what she's doing.
Thank you so much for your perspective. That is Governor Bill Richardson live from Santa Fe.